So I interned this summer in San Jose, California with PricewaterhouseCoopers. And you guys have probably heard the names of the big four thrown around: PWC, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, and KPMG. As someone once said the first time I went to something with them, it doesn't really matter which of the big four you work for, they do the same thing. It's really the people that you got to get to know. And to a lot of extent that's true. There are slight differences between the firms. Yeah, speaking for the office building. So one of the things that I love about PWC is that they have locations everywhere. It was really, as I looked at PWC, it was always sort of a, how is your career going to go? What are you going to do with your career? What's your plan? And PWC was always a big, good component for that. For one thing, I got the possibility of relocating all over the place. In fact, I interned in San Jose, and I'm starting work for them this fall in McLean, Virginia, because I asked. Not all of the big four are as nice about relocation as PwC, but there's a lot of locations to choose from. First piece of advice, though, is if you are going for one of the big four, don't try and apply for Salt Lake. There's just way too many people applying for Salt Lake because they want to stay in Utah, and there's not enough spots. However, with all the big four, you have a great leg up on all of the accountants, because most every single person in the accounting school wants to work for one of the big four, and not that many people in our major actually want to work for the big four. So first of all, they are surprised when you're there, like, oh, you're ISIS, great, we have other things for you. And you're kind of the special one at the interviews. And it's a bit easier to get into them because there's less of our applicants. And I'll tell you that the big four have an incredibly high opinion of BYU. I sat with a partner and we had a discussion where she just told me about why they love BYU and why I could even tell in the interview process there was sort of special treatment for BYU people. A lot of accounting firms are going to brag to you that they have this and that client. To be honest, that's their audit clients that they're mostly talking about. And for example, Google here is not audited by PwC, it's Ernst & Young, but Google contracts with most of the big accounting firms to do different projects for them. I didn't work on the Google engagement, but we had some sort of we had a project with them where we were trying to help them become more compliant with some new government regulations that they had to work with. So there's sort of some mystery about what accounting firms do. We've all seen this probably on their signs, audit tax advisory. Basically put, clients don't like to see auditors, they like tax people because they save them money, and they love advisors because they're fixing their problems. And they do all three of them. From an IS point of view, you're more likely to work in audit or advisory. Tax is not really a big deal for you guys. So advisory can be anything, and so I couldn't really describe it. I worked on a project briefly that was helping the city of San Francisco put in a new toll booth system for the Bay Bridge. It can go all over the place. Like I said, there was that compliance one with Google. The other side that's easier to describe is IT audit. Basically, everything on a financial statement could be wrong, and the accounting firms are trying to say, and come in and give a reasonable assurance that the information's correct. The way that we come in as IT people is we're looking at the computer systems, and most specifically the business controls surrounding the use of those computer systems, to see if they're well designed to mitigate risk and to see if they were actually carried out, and if they really had the effect that they were supposed to have. So this is Dr. Romney's class. Do you guys have good or bad memories of Dr. Romney's class? Very quiet. Okay, well, yeah, it's a lot of stuff from Dr. Romney's class, separation of control of concerns and things like that you deal with. We go in and we have some pretty sexy technology. We work with Excel and Lotus Notes. I had never heard of Lotus Notes before I went there. It's email meets database, kind of scary. Though, just as I was thinking that my technical skills were sort of wasted on it, one of the other auditors turned to me and says, "Could you help me with this SQL statement? You know SQL, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I learned some SQL," and I'm thinking back to manager's minor. And she turns around her computer, and it's just the SQL statement that went on and on and on for pages and pages and pages, was a single statement. And I was like, oh, wow, I need to learn more. You interface a lot with systems like Oracle. As you get higher up, you get more direct interaction with those systems. Mainly, I was dealing with reports that had already been extracted from the system. And just really briefly, I want to talk about why work with the Big Four. To be honest, it isn't the most technical of the places that you could work. I know a lot of people in information systems are wanting a more technical route, and there are some technical things in there. I know at KPMG there was one guy I met who he programmed for them, and that's pretty odd actually for an accounting firm, but they have need of that sometimes. And there's more things that become possible for you after you've had a few years with them. For example, they do forensics, and I'm really excited about forensics. Mike Nyland knows exactly how excited I am. And they are one of those companies that will come in and do the forensic analysis to try and find evidence of fraud, especially, and testify in court. And that just sounds so ridiculously awesome to me. And as I work longer at the firm, the possibility of doing those sorts of things comes up. And when I say work longer at the firm, I mean working there for a few years. They have a very fast promotion strategy. And so if you work there for 5 years or so, you have a bit of a title behind your name, you have experience, you have a much higher wage than when you started. And a lot of your clients that you've been working with have gotten to know you. And it's very possible that you may go work for one of your clients later on. And the accounting firms, while they hate to see you go, they know that if you work for them and then you work for their client, that they have a friendly face at their client. So they're actually not that against it. It happens a lot, and so especially if you're not sure what company you'd love to end up working for, you can try and find an accounting firm office plopped in the middle of companies that you might like, and work there for a while. And then you can work with those companies, and either you can maybe go work for one of those companies someday, or there may be something inside of PWC or one of the Big Four that you like, or you may simply find that you want to do something else, and oh well, you have an amazing thing on your resume. So even if you aren't excited about accounting, it's something definitely worth considering. Do you guys have any questions about either PWC or any of the Big Four?
Did you do the text?
The what?
Did you do the texting at your internship, or what did you do at PWC?
Texting? Or?
Oh, text. What did you do at PWC?
Oh, what tech stuff? I was doing the IT audit stuff.
IT audit?
Yeah, I worked a lot in Excel, and I was looking to see if the reports that were made by the Oracle systems were accurate and that they were complete, that they had every piece of information in there. And there was a lot of times where I was like, wait, this could be wrong. And they'd work with me, and then it would end up being right. But you'd be surprised, a lot of big companies, they still do things wrong. It doesn't necessarily mean there's fraud going on, but we have to keep them on their toes. And to add fun to that, the government, after Arthur Andersen, has decided they now need to regulate us, and so we get audited. There's a lot of back and forth with that. So yeah, mainly working on Excel. Oh, I should also say, almost always at the client site. You can kind of pretend you work for Apple or Google or whoever it is, because you have to work on their site almost all the time. Very rarely at the office, unless you work tax, which is not something IS people will do. Anything else?
All right, thanks.
Okay, thanks.